Good evening. Thank you for joining us. My name is OMONDI and this is KTV Prime Time News. It is a Tuesday, the 18th day of October, the year 2022. Tonight, we have a lot in store for you. What is happening in the country and, of course, beyond our borders. Now, in the country, the vetting process of the nominated members of the cabinet of President William Ruto has entered its second day, with the candidates, of course, of this day facing the parliamentary committee on vetting to qualify them to see if they're really competent to hold these key offices in the country. Just a word for you, but first let's take a look at the stories making headlines tonight. The vetting process of President Ruto's nominated cabinet enters day 2 at the National Assembly buildings. CS nominee Aisha Jumwa writes to the DPP seeking to be a state witness in a murder case against her. Nairobi West Hospital carries out its first successful bone marrow transplant. President William Ruto officiates the official opening of affordable housing project.
This is KUTV Primetime News with OMONDI OTIENO.
Welcome to the broadcast. I'm not alone. I'm in the company of Macklin Chen, who is our sign language interpreter tonight. We're streaming live our broadcast on the social media platforms on Facebook, KUTV Kenya, and Twitter, KUTV_Kenya. It's also live on YouTube at KUTV Kenya Live. Now, Interior and National Administration Cabinet Secretary nominee Kithure Kindiki says that his priority areas will include ridding the country of criminals, bandits, terrorists, and cattle rustlers. Usually a very soft-spoken politician, Kindiki, who opened today's vetting session, sounded tough on security matters, perhaps giving the clearest indication of his style if he succeeds. Fred Matiang'i.
Professor Kithure Kindiki will come face to face with and tackle security matters of significant magnitude should the vetting panel at the 13th Parliament approve of him to start serving the people of Kenya under the Ministry of Interior. To start with, Kindiki will have to craft a working solution to the rampant bandit attacks and stock theft in the Rift, which has claimed the lives of innocent Kenyans. To this end, Kindiki advocates for, among other things, a heightened community policing.
99% of our people are law-abiding. The 1% that are lawbreakers will be extremely ruthless with them, and we will speak very little about or with them, and will act decisively, ruthlessly to ensure our nation is secure.
Just yesterday, when I was undertaking this very important national duty, I received a text that criminals from my neighboring constituency, that is Tiati, ambushed herders, injured one person, and drove away with cattle. As if that was not enough, the criminals continue to be bolder by the day. This morning, they attacked again. As we speak, they have killed one person.
On Kenya's territorial integrity, the Migingo Island is still being claimed by both Kenya and Uganda, leading to arbitrary arrest of Kenyan fishermen by Ugandan police. Kenya is also having a tiff with Somalia over an oil reserve in the Indian Ocean, a matter that was escalated to the International Criminal Court, but which remains a major security concern. Expansion of the wellness and counseling units to tackle mental health in the forces was also floated.
I intend to equip, expand, and fully capitalize the wellness and counseling unit, which I intend to link with the soon to be established Kenya Police Hospital, the Kenya Police Service Hospital, and the Kenya Prison Service Hospital.
And on crime, the nominee intends to use the necessary force while observing human rights principles.
A case has been made that violence is not an option, and I agree. But it's one of the options. It's one of the options. It's not the only option, but it's the one of the options. Because what language are you going, what discussion are you going with a criminal who has stolen 100 cows from an innocent person and is hiding in a gorge? What is he doing in a gorge in the first place?
Kindiki promised not to engage any political interest should he find favor in the eyes of the vetting panel, and confirmed that his relationship with the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua remains intact despite the two of them wrestling it out to deputize President William Ruto, a duel which he lost. The Interior nominee was scheduled to take only an hour before the Moses Wetangula-led panel, but ended up taking an extra hour, perhaps signifying the premium placed on the ministry. Dennis Omondi, KUTV.
And the former Central Bank of Kenya Governor, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, also appeared before the vetting committee today, and this comes after his nomination as the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury by President William Ruto. Ndung'u was being faced with tough questions concerning his leadership during his tenure as the governor for the Central Bank, and of course very vital questions on how he will revive the ailing economy.
Testify. Second on the chopping board was Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who served as the Central Bank of Kenya governor for 8 years between the year 2007 to 2015, and after his life and career background, Professor Njuguna was faced with hard questions which made him break a sweat. Fiscal interventions on the course the nation should take to handle the debt crisis issue and make sure the cost of essential goods is kept under control were brought up. Professor Ndung'u stating that his vision, if approved, is to protect private investment, to develop and regulate markets, and to mobilize domestic resources to improve the country's revenue base. 950. The issue of how many banks collapsed under his tenure as governor of the Central Bank of Kenya was not left behind.
During my time, there is no bank that collapsed. I was governor of the Central Bank of Kenya from March 2007 to the beginning of March in 2015. There were several mergers, but those mergers were actually geared towards preventing any collapse of the banks, because market situations do change. Some projections in marketplace can change, and so the regulator must know what to do.
Ndung'u was later asked to clarify his mention in the Grand Regency Hotel scandal, reportedly worth 2.9 billion shillings, the controversy involved in the hotel sale, the secrecy under which it was negotiated, and the identity of the buyers.
The case of Grand Regency, I think the statement is that I was adversely mentioned. I was an agent of government, and this was a government-to-government sale, and I was the one to negotiate and to receive the payment, which was actually received by the government. The whole issue was, how was it appropriately done? According to that commission, it valued the hotel at 1.8 billion. Then the question they were asked, what about the central bank? How did it value the hotel? It was at 2.2 billion. And then how much was the hotel sold by the central bank? It was sold at 2.8 billion.
About the entire issue of Imperial Bank paying for his wife's trip to Thailand, Ndung'u said that he paid an agent at the resort directly for that trip.
I've been a victim of abuse of the criminal justice system. For example, the procurement that has been mentioned. The whole idea was to get Njuguna Ndung'u out of the central bank. How do you do it? That's why even if you go to the records, you will just be embarrassed, the kind of facts.
If approved, Professor Ndung'u will succeed outgoing Finance Minister Ukur Yatani. Eugene Mayabi, KUTV.
And the former Lady Member of Parliament Aisha Jumwa was also among the nominees who appeared before the Parliament's Committee for Appointment today to assess suitability as the Public Service Gender and the Affirmative Action Cabinet Secretary. Now, Aisha Jumwa was interviewed on various matters, including the pending graft murder cases and her degrees holding and the gender discrimination, among other issues. And of course, also in line with this was a story which our reporter Susan Oyaki brings it out clearly on the murder case, which has taken a different turn as the family of the deceased requested that the Juma's case be withdrawn from the court as they are planning to solve this issue outside the court. All right, and it is a really interesting story, as Aisha Juma also wrote to the DPP requesting for the withdrawal of that case. Let's hear what Susan Oyaki prepared on this.
The family of Wanjola Ngumbao in Malindi's Ganda ward, who was killed in a confrontation with Public Service Cabinet Secretary nominee Aisha Jumwa, has applied to drop the murder case against the politician. Jumwa was charged alongside her bodyguard Geoffrey Kuto in 2020 over the murder of Michael Ngumbao Jola. The decision to withdraw charges against the former Malindi MP was communicated to a Mombasa court on Tuesday. This comes a week after the Director of Public Prosecutions withdrew graft charges it leveled against the CS nominee, who was accused of irregularly obtaining 19 million Kenya shillings. In 2019, Mr. Ngumbao passed away in a Malindi hospital after being wounded in the shoulder during the Ganda ward by-election campaigning. During the proceedings of the cases in March and April, it became clear that vital evidence had not been given to the defense team. Therefore, a key witness in the murder trial against former Malindi MP Aisha Jumwa was prevented from continuing with her testimony. On Tuesday, October 18th, the family requested to settle the matter out of court, arguing that the lawmaker was not a principal offender in the case and preferred she presented herself as a witness instead. The prosecution may choose to grant the request and drop the charges against the former Malindi MP, or direct that the matter heads full hearing on grounds of national interest. Juma had appeared before the National Assembly's Committee on Appointments chaired by the Speaker of the House, Moses Wetangula, where, if approved, she will join a cluster of coastal leaders appointed to serve in cabinet under President Ruto's Kenya Kwanza administration. Susan Oyaki for KUTV.
And the technocrat Davis Churchill also appeared before the appointment committee to answer on his validness on becoming the cabinet secretary for energy and petroleum. Now, Davis Churchill said that his first assignment as the cabinet secretary will be to look at the cost structure of the parastatal, adding that the cost of distribution should be looked up so as to lower the cost of power. Davis Churchill termed the petroleum and oil issue at Lokichar as being at a phase of the development phase. And now to Morris's Courier, who also appeared before the committee today, which closed the second day, of course, of the cabinet nominees vetting for the position of the cabinet secretary for trade and investment and industrialization. He said that if elected, or rather if he is given the position, he will ensure that Kenyans will be free to do business by stopping the culture of criminalizing enterprises. He also says that he has a financial worth of 750 million Kenyan shillings, which comprises of real estate development, shares, manufacturing, fintech, and energy sector. The former Gatundu MP has been associated with political controversy with court cases on his neck. And the Chief Justice Martha Koome will on Wednesday tomorrow preside over the swearing-in of Mohammed Amin Ibrahim. Amin was appointed by the President William Ruto as the new Directorate of Criminal Investigations. His appointment comes after the resignation of his predecessor George Kinoti. Amin has been in the police service since the year 1989. Initially, he served as the head of DCI in Rift Valley, North, Eastern, Central and Western Kenya. Away from that, the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua today presided over the first meeting of the 18th Ordinary Session of the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, IBEC. Him being the chairperson of the council, he called upon ensuring that its mandate is realized and decisions made are implemented without any delay. He also addressed that the process of funding and delegation of devolved functions should take place in a period that does not exceed 6 months. He also urged on the need of settlement of the eligible bills, being the first charge in the beginning of the financial year, in a bid to release the resources back to the economy. Minutes past the top of the hour, it's time we take a short break here on KTV Primetime News. And in a moment we shall be coming back with the discussion of the night on the grill, the hot seat, where the nominees for the cabinet positions were facing today. Just see you on the other side.
Ukiwa na dukuduku la michezo, tunafungua sanduku la dukuduku kwa ufahamu zaidi. Kila danadana, mitimpo, mifiatuko na harakati zote ugani, sisi ni wako mwandani. Kukurukakara zote nyanjani, haziwezi kuangaziwa zaidi ya micharazo michezoni. Mimi mwanaspoti wako matata Peter Pinches Mwaora, ndakuwa na jopo lenye maarifa sufufu, nikufahamishe na nikuburudishe wewe shabiki shakiki kwa uhakiki na kindakindaki.
All Africa, we are a software company based out of Nairobi, Kenya, and we build customer-centric solutions that helps businesses communicate effectively with their customers. So the first solution that we offer is a VoIP solution. So the VoIP solution is basically a call center that allows you to push up to between 1,000 to 1,000,000 concurrent calls at a go. So that's either if people are calling you in or whether you're calling people out. The advantage that we've been able to also see with this is people can work remotely. So if, for example, you're in Nairobi and you're managing a team in Mombasa or in Kisumu, then you have full access.
Unemployment has hit you hard. Your salary is meager. You decide to venture into business, but you're struggling to thrive in it. You would want to reap a big tip on how not to run into losses.
Forget the preachy business vlogs, the hyperbolic motivational speeches, and all the roads down desperation.
Hope has come with model stories from small successful entrepreneurs. We tell you these tales weekly on The Budding Entrepreneur. Join us as we help you make your trade profitable and often smile to the bank.
You are watching KUTV Primetime News with OMONDI OTIENO.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Let's carry on with the bulletin. Now, Nairobi West Hospital has put Kenyan on the international map after performing the first bone marrow transplant treatment in the country. Now, this is expected to be a relief to many Kenyans who normally travel abroad to seek the same medical treatment.
Nairobi West Hospital will go down in annals of history as the first ever hospital in the country to offer bone marrow transplant treatment. This milestone achievement means Kenyans with blood disorders will no longer be required to travel out of the country for bone marrow transplant.
I would be happy to announce at this particular moment that we have transplanted our first patient with bone marrow. So the whole idea behind bone marrow transplant is to actually take out or obliterate all the abnormal cells and replace them with normal functioning cells.
The first to undergo treatment was a 55-year-old patient who was diagnosed with multiple myeloma on October 10th and is expected to be discharged from the facility in the coming days.
And she is doing extremely well, probably to be released in the hospital in the next 1 to 2 days.
But the treatment will not come at a cheaper price. It will cost patients between 2.5 million to 3.5 million shillings, according to Andrew Kanyi Gachi, Chief Medical Director at the hospital. The said price is cheaper than the cost incurred when seeking treatment outside the country.
That's one of the things we are considering, because we have been saying that these people have been traveling to India or to other countries, of course at a substantial cost, and of course it's a kind of loss to a foreign exchange or exchequer.
With the latest breakthrough and health services closer to home, bone marrow transplant patients seeking medical attention abroad can now rest at ease. Auma Evans for KUTV, Nairobi.
Now, President William Ruto today officially opened the affordable housing project in Ongata Rongai, Kajiado County. The event was attended by various leaders in the country, including the Kajiado Governor Joseph Olelenku and the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development, James Macharia.
President William Ruto earlier today led the opening of affordable housing project in Ongata Rongai, Kajiado County. This being his first tour to the region since his swearing in as Kenya's 5th president. The president used the opportunity to applaud King's Company, which does house building practices in urban centers, for cooperating with both the county and national governments in promoting the project. He requested various private companies to do the same.
Hata kama hii project ni private kati yao na wale walipatiana ardhi hii, serikali ya Kenya itasimama na wao kuwatafutia wale watakaoishi katika hizi manyumba.
On the other hand, President Ruto has promised that the government is going to invest on the project in ensuring 200,000 houses are constructed yearly in all of the 47 counties.
Excellency, you made sure that as you support developers, you have not left the people, the consumers, who you take over those housing units.
In his address, Dr. Ruto noted that Kenyans with small businesses will also benefit from the launch of Hustler Fund that has been slated for December this year. The funds will be accompanied with lower interest to enable Kenyans to repay on time.
Tarehe 1 Disemba tunaanzisha Hustler Fund ambayo itahakikisha kila Mkenya anapata mkopo kwa riba ya chini.
With the issue of improper sewerage systems which has greatly affected the residents of Kajiado County, the President has therefore given a directive that the concerned authorities to liaise with the county government of Kajiado in finding a solution to the matter. Other leaders who attended the event include Kajiado Governor Joseph Olelenku and the Minister for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development James Macharia. Shadrack Simiyu, KUTV.
Siaya Governor James Orengo has challenged the local residents of Siaya County to embrace agribusiness so as to boost food security and tackle the rampant poverty in the region. Now, Orengo lamented that though the county and the entire Nyanza region is endowed with good climate and fertile soils, little has been done to exploit the resources for the betterment of the society.
Siaya County joined the world in celebrating this year's World Food Celebration, where the county governor James Orengo united with residents of Simero village in Ugunja sub-county to commemorate the day. The governor said it was a pity that the county is endowed with numerous rivers and streams that empty into Lake Victoria, water that is later used by the River Nile Basin to produce agricultural products by countries like Egypt that is later sold back to Kenya.
Kenya nchi ya Misri kuna hali ya ukavu, hakuna mvua, hata mvua ikija ni mvua kidogo. Wanategemea hii maji mnaona hata hii kidogo kutoka Uoroya hapa. Ni aibu kubwa sana kwa sababu singine unaweza kwenda kwa supermarket unapata machungwa na mambo mengine ambayo zinatoka katika nchi ya Misri.
Efforts to revive the cotton farming and other cash crops such as Robusta coffee that was once grown in parts of the county was one of the issues raised. The governor said that his government will employ more agricultural extension officers to serve the residents and increase food production.
Zamani tulikuwa na pamba, tulikuwa na machinery hapa katika county ya Siaya. Kulikuwa wakati mwingine hapa Ugunja, sehemu zingine za Ugunja, mpaka Ugenya mpaka Game. Kulikuwa wakulima wa kahawa ya Robusta. Kulikuwa wakati mwingine pia ilikuwa tumeanza kidogo ukulima wa miwa. Kwa hivyo mimi naomba katika mambo ya chakula tujaribu ile tuwe na heshima, tujitosheleze kwa chakula.
On fishing, the county will soon rely on central Kenya for fish as the stock in Lake Victoria continues to decline and there is a slow pace of adoption of fish farming in the area as stated by the governor.
Ni aibu kubwa sana, sisi ndio tunapenda samaki. Lakini aibu sasa ni kwamba itakuwa ni miaka 5-10 ambayo samaki ambao tunakula za tilapia mtakuwa tunaenda Sagana kutafuta hiyo samaki, kwa sababu idadi ya samaki katika ziwa la Victoria imekuwa duni sasa.
World Food Day 2022 is being marked in a year with multiple global challenges, including the ongoing pandemic, conflict, climate change, rising prices, and international tensions. All of these affecting global food security. Joseph Dhuku reporting for KUTV.
And with that report by Joseph Dhuku, we are taking a very short break. We shall be coming back with a roundtable on the hot seat of the vetting process of the nominees. Stay with us. See you in just a moment.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto kutoka nchi za Amerika ya Kati wanaendelea kuwasili kwenye mpaka kati ya Marekani na Mexico.
But folks, I'm going. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ni habari kutoka pembe zote duniani.
Pepo pasi vuguvugu. Pepo
inakuwa ni idea.
Sazidi ananyonya, hanyonyi vizuri, anakuwa hayuko comfortable.
Jeshi la Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo linapambana na waasi wa ADF.
Kwa sasa wanatoa wito kwa mashirika, makampuni na vile vituo vya uchukuzi.
Mambo mengi yatakwenda kama yalivyopangwa.
Hapa ni kuna mmoja wa viongozi wa chama cha wavuvi katika eneo hili.
Zaidi tunajaribu kuwapa chanjo ili ina boost ama inanyanyua kinga ya mwili, ndio inaenda kupelekea kupambana na virusi.
Ni duniani leo, Jumatatu mpaka Ijumaa, moja kwa moja kutoka VOA Swahili, Washington DC.
Tennis basically means everything to me. Ever since I started playing, it plays a very important role in my life.
KUTV Primetime News with OMONDI OTIENO.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now it's time for our roundtable. If you might be having questions for our guests concerning the hot seat of the CS nominees vetting, of course, you shall be telling us in the comment section. Be able to read them out to the guests as we seek the responses to theirs. Now, the vetting process of the nominated cabinet secretaries entered its second day with the candidates appearing before the National Assembly's Appointment Committee. The questions on competence, transparency, honesty, and meeting the requirements of the Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity and the Article 10 of the Constitution on the values and principles of governance took the center stage. Now, these are key dockets in the governance of the nation, and the citizens would really wish to have the best leaders for proper service delivery, and that generally forms the basis of our discussion tonight. And joining me is our seasoned political commentator, Kennedy Sankara. Thank you so much, Sankara, for dedicating your time for this discussion. And of course, now let us just get the ball rolling. Now, we have seen the vetting process of these nominated CSs getting to the second day. So what do you really compare probably with what we saw yesterday, and what should Kenyans really be waiting for in the forthcoming days? Because there have been concerns that have been raised by citizens that the chairman of this committee, that is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, is so lenient on these candidates.
Well, the entire process of vetting cabinet nominees is actually a constitutional expectation that must be exercised or executed in a manner that is consistent with the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about the provisions of Chapter 6, leadership and integrity, maybe most of us may be saying leadership and integrity, Chapter 6, and principles under Article 10, which we may not be aware. The authority given to a state officer is a donated public trust that must be exercised in a manner that is consistent with the Constitution. Number one, it must demonstrate respect for the people of Kenya. It must also build the public trust and confidence in the integrity of those institutions. Mm-hmm. It must also be consistent with the object and purpose of the Constitution. The process must also solidify the dignity to our nation. Mm-hmm. Then the question begging is, with the vetting process that has so far been recorded, mm-hmm. has respect been demonstrated for the people of Kenya? Mm-hmm. No. As the institution solidified the integrity of its integrity while executing or performing public mandate, a lot of question marks are being raised. Mm-hmm. So, to myself and in my personal observation, some of the cabinet nominees should have been struck off from the word go, because they are failing to meet basic constitutional principles. The leadership and integrity, it's a very brief part of the constitution, and it's very straight to the point. You look at the recent, like yesterday, when the big fish were being vetted, most of Kenyans were surprised. The Asla government, the billionaires has built an Asla government. It is so ironical, and the people of Kenya who voted the Asla nation government are now asking themselves several questions that even not the Aslas themselves can answer. Then who is the real Asla?
Absolutely, because actually yesterday the conversation that was really heated in the online media station was, Kenyans asking that if this government, we voted in the Hustler government, and is it really the Hustler government as we had anticipated, or because we are seeing no Mamamboga else anywhere in this, in this vetting process, and of course probably when they were declaring their wealth, no one was coming with anything less than 100 million. That is yesterday. It's only today that we saw, of course, Aisha Jumwa declaring that her wealth is only at 100 million shillings. So does this probably paint a different picture of the Hustler government to the Kenyans on what they had anticipated before the voting process?
Well, the guiding principles of leadership is selection based on personal integrity, confidence. I mean, that personal integrity, that suitability to hold that office, those are one of the key issues that must be considered without having political soft spot or the process being influenced by any other means available. Now, considering what has happened and the leniency on the side of the speaker, and maybe before I dilute and go back to what you've just asked me, the point I'm trying to bring out actually also justifies what I'm saying, is that the selection process under the guiding principle of leadership is that it is based on my individual capability, my individual suitability, my competence, and not influenced by any other form or means that contravenes the basic provisions of the Constitution on matters integrity. These people have told us that they are hustlers and ordinary people. The sources or the kind of business they are pronouncing before the committee does not relate in one way or the other with what an hustler form of work they demonstrate. Definitely that cuts out or reduces our confidence in what they believe. The Constitution has been violated ab initio by people coming to lie in the public domain. If some quoted 500 million, if others quoted 3 billion, I am rest assured that they are more than that. That is the only thing they could lie with in the public domain. And that definitely exposes the selfish character of Kenyan politicians. These are billionaires, these are millionaires, employing poor people who are working under hand-to-mouth economy. Yet these are billionaires. You look at some of the people who surround them as loyalists. They are seriously struggling while the billionaires are calling themselves hustlers. That is politics of conmanship, politics of deceit.
All right, really, really interesting on that point, how you bring it out clearly. And now you've really, aired this concern that the kind of, when these leaders are told to explain the sources of their wealth, it is not coming out clearly. And of course, probably on the integrity, basing this on the chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity. There are some leaders, of course, who have been, allegations have been made against them concerning previously how they have served in previous government dockets, issues of maybe squandering public finances. So do you think probably with these issues that have been raised, the questions that have been raised, do we see chances or possibilities of some of these nominees being stricken off and probably not passing this vetting process?
Well, if Parliament is an institution of integrity, then it is not the question of how or It's just the question of when. They must, in fact, they should not be struck off. They must be struck off. Let me take, for example, I want to be very categorical in my talks. Someone like the cabinet nominee for public service, Honorable Aisha Jumwa. Aisha Jumwa's certificate of good conduct indicates that she has a murder case. How does this character qualify to be a CS under working constitution? That is no. In fact, the honorable thing that the Honorable Aisha Jumwa should do is to, pull herself away from the public debate on the nominee, wait for the court processes to finalize. If it is her thing, she will just get it. But applying...
you see, Aisha Jumwa has defended herself, saying that, she's constitutionally, she's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in the court of law.
The question I'm bringing is, we are strictly adhering with provisions of leadership and integrity.
Yes.
I bring a certificate of good conduct and it indicates that Sankara has a murder charge that is still active in court. The same now this case, we look at the duration it has taken to be heard and determined, quite long. Now the prime suspect is now applying to DPP to become a state witness.
Right.
Whose son is this being used as a sacrificial lamb? This is the question we must ask without any fear or favor. Someone like David Chichir, he has been accused of some amount of money squandered during his tenure. He is not coming out clearly to defend whether it was a mere political propaganda or it is a matter of substance. Such like characters to comply fully with provisions of leadership and integrity, that reads bringing dignity to the nation. Bringing dignity to the nation means striking off Aisha Jumwa, pushing away Davis Chirchir. But again, another constitutional principle is being being disregarded, and that is awarding these positions not based on competency, suitability, and integrity, but based on political affiliation. Some of the members in the committee are barely asking 0 questions while they are paid and they take taxpayers' money based on competence to sit in those committees to ask the questions that myself, Sankara here, cannot ask in those committee sessions.
Really interesting. Really interesting, of course, the issue that are bringing out on members that are in this committee, the nature of questions.
They are taking tea. They are there to take allowances.
The nature of questions, of course, that they are asking. Do you think probably with this trend, if it continues, seeing from what we saw yesterday and what we saw today during this vetting process, do we have a possibility of probably this committee finding someone incompetent so far among for the 22 cabinet secretary positions that have been nominated so far?
In their eye, incompetency is relative. What we understand, we may be understanding out here may be different from what they're understanding. But before I mean several words, let me say this. With the cabinet nominees fronted by the president to the parliament, red flags should be raised everywhere in Kenya, along the public roads. We are headed in a very dangerous scenario where almost 50 plus 1% of cabinet nominees have questionable integrity, not from murder, not from heinous economic crimes. Where we headed is that what message is the president sending to the people of Kenya that, oh, look, you're on your own. Every man for himself, God for us all. He has exposed us to hyenas. And I'm actually saying this passionately. The president has exposed the people of Kenya to hyenas. You cannot do we have insufficiency of people to be appointed to those offices? We are 50 plus million Kenyans.
Maybe Sankara, let us go slow on what the president was saying, and the deputy president, and of course, they have also been saying that Kenyans need to give them time to deliver on their mandate. Maybe let us get into this perspective. I want to get to a perspective on the National Treasury and Planning nominee, that is Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who was cornered today between the rocks to answer answer questions about the collapse of the banks when he served as the CBK governor. And a lot of questions, of course, that were being asked where Junaid Mohammed, who is on the Azimio side, was asking that when he served as the CBK governor, there were in 2011, the parliament investigated that there were collusions. There were collusions between the governor, that is Njuguna Ndung'u, with the commercial banks in a speculation, or rather in a plan to weaken the Kenyan shilling, which really saw the Kenyan shilling really go weak against the US dollar. So these are not just speculations. They are things that are coming out with facts. So what does this really mean to this ailing economy if you are having such a person which is passed as the CBK governor? Questions were raised that they made plans, conspiracy to weaken the Kenyan shilling. So what is the future if we're having such a person at the helm of this prime docket?
I have said, and I'll repeat, Kenneth, let us replace our erect red flags next to our Kenyan flags. We are in a very dangerous situation. Where on earth, as someone who has served at the prime position of a CBK governor, being given a cabinet nominee for finance and treasury, while there are sufficient evidence, because the parliament investigated, if I got you right. They did not speculate. They investigated, and a report is in the public domain under the parliamentary chambers. Where does the president get the unique sanitizer to bring this person? This is smuggling a corrupt person to the public office through the back door. The parliament must stand firm to reject such like nominees. I am not speaking based on political interest, but I'm speaking for the people of Kenya, because we understand the value of that shilling versus the dollar and what that really implies to the common person, the hustlers that is different from the billionaire hustlers who formed the government by duping the people of Kenya that indeed they are hustlers. Hustlers are not even worth 500 shillings. Hustlers are worth 50, 100 bob. Hand-to-mouth economy. The hustlers they are calling are people with billions, people with millions. This is conmanship. Before I forget, you are asking me that now that these people, we should not go hard on the president and the DP and give them time to deliver. You cannot get it right when you start it. You set it off the wrong way. You cannot do the right thing, achieve the right objective by institutionalizing a wrong person to do the right thing. It's like taking a farmer to go and extract my tooth in the dental hospital. In as much as I appreciate the actual value of a farmer, the farmer do not fit in an hospital corridor. Neither do a doctor fit in a farming ground. So people must be allowed to do what they actually able to do, and that's why the leadership and integrity under Article 72 subsection B of the 2010 Constitution speaks of selection being based on personal integrity, suitability, and competency. How is a competent person competent? Is not a competent person is not someone who has been found incompetent, sanitized to be brought back to become competent.
Interesting.
To please a political formation. We are not in Asla nation to stay. We had Jubilee era, we had Moi and Kanu era, we had Kibaki era. These things come and go, but the country stays, the shilling stays. We cannot bring a weakling link or a weak link to the shilling back to manage the shillings. That is a big no. And the people of Kenya must even move to court to stop the vetting of the CS Treasury, because his history speaks for himself.
Maybe let's wait to see what this able committee will come out with. Probably they will find weakness, of course, to probably tell the president to find another suitable person. So just in a minute, Sankara, I mean a minute. There have been, of course, questions raised on the political affiliations. These dockets being awarded in terms of political affiliations and probably technocrats. One person that has really been loud lauded, in as much as probably his history might be having a smoke of a dark spot. This is Davis Chirchir in the docket of energy and petroleum. People have really lauded the plans that he has for this docket. Probably, what do you make of this selection process that was made by the president, rather, on the technocrats and political affiliations? Do you think the technocrats, who is taking an example of Chirchir, will probably deliver to the mandate of the dockets that are being given? Just in a minute, kindly.
The president was battling between competency and loyalty. He chose to reward his loyalists with high demanding opportunities at the expense of technocrats. The president is struggling very hard to force Kenyans to accept these people as cabinet nominees, while he understands very well that their history do not allow them. How is a technocrat? A technocrat must not be a corrupt person who wants to serve a public interest office. That is a donated public trust that must be executed in a manner consistent with the primary objects and purpose of the Constitution. The Constitution do not abhor or adore corruption. Someone who has been accused of tainted hands must first seek for sanitizer, not through the back door by the power, the ruling government, but through the constitutionally recognized processes. The power denoted is not for them to rule us, but for them to deliver in a manner that is consistent with the same document I've been mentioning. So it is not a matter of a technocrat. I would say, and this one I would say passionately, the president battled so much with the battle between awarding technocrats and rewarding loyalists. He chose this loyalist. That's why he settled for people like Aisha Jumwa, while he knew very well that Aisha Jumwa and Linturi had issues. Imagine. No,
Sankara, let me just cut you on that, probably, maybe just for the interest of time. But we really hope that, you might be having a dark past, and the Kenyans should not really base their judgment on this, leaders probably on what past they had. Time and chance occurs to all, and probably another chance that has been given to them, they might be different. So
I've never read that one in the Constitution, especially under the leadership of
all right, Sankara, let us wait to see on how things will go. Probably with that, let us take a very short break and maybe take a look at what's happening in the world of sports. All right, time to see how the ball is rolling in the world of sports. Now, Kenya is set to become the fastest African country to host the African Triathlon Cup scheduled for November 26th to 27th at the Silver Palm Beach and Resort in Kilifi County. The event marks the 9th leg of the competition and has attracted 9 countries so far, namely South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Mauritius, Egypt, Morocco, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tunisia. The National Olympics Committee of Kenya, NOCK, through its Secretary General Francis Mutuku, has already pumped 927,000 Kenyan shilling as part of the estimated 24.6 million budget to host the event. Kenya Triathlon Federation Treasurer Romel Lukila, who received a replica check from NOC Kenya in Nairobi, said that Kenya is lucky rather to have been accorded the honor to stay the African Cup Series event. And Karim Benzema became the 5th Frenchman to get the crown of the most coveted Ballon d'Or as a recognition for scoring 44 goals in 46 games, enabling Madrid to claim the Champions League and the La Liga titles in the last season. Benzema piped Sadio Mane to the award, which with the city's Kevin De Bruyne competing for the podium.
Frenchman and Real Madrid striker Karim Benzema emerged the victor of the Ballon d'Or following his thrilling performance